Welcome to NBA Update. This is the NBA Playoffs edition of NBA Update. Today I will be previewing the second round of the NBA playoffs. I will start in the Eastern Conference and then I will preview the Western Conference matchups. The first matchup in the Eastern Conference is between the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Atlanta Hawks. This will be a very intriguing matchup for the Cavs because the Atlanta Hawks is one of these teams that play very well as a team. They don't have any superstar per se, but they have a lot of good, solid players that are capable of playing very well on any given night, and they gel very well as a team. So if they play well as a five-man unit, they can beat them. They would be a tough out in any series, so the Cavs better not take Atlanta lightly because they are no joke. The key players in this matchup, or key matchups in this series, are Kyrie Irving versus Jeff Teague, the matchup of the point guards. Kevin Love versus Paul Millsap, the battle of the power forwards. And the key go-to player for Cleveland is going to be LeBron James. The offense is going to flow through him, and he is one of the few players that actually plays defense. So the team is going to have to still flow through him. Atlanta Hawks' key go-to player is Al Horford. Al Horford averaged a double-double in the last round. He's going to have to sustain that in the next round if the Hawks want to win. The X factor in this series for Cleveland is J.R. Smith. J.R. Smith is very streaky. He can either go cold and put up 5 points, or he can go hot and put up 20. You never know which J.R. Smith will show up. But if the J.R. Smith that puts up 20 points shows up, Cleveland normally blows the other team out. The key player for Atlanta is Kent Bazemore. Kent Bazemore was amazing in the last round against Boston. He really provided them a solid small forward because Kyle Korver wasn't playing very well. Kent Bazemore is the X factor for the Hawks because that now gives them a solid starting five with Teague, Horford, Millsap, Bazemore, and Korver. The Cleveland Cavaliers would win if the big three of the Cavs dominant play, and if they do that, they should win the series easily. The Atlanta Hawks would win if Kyle Korver plays like he did last year, and Bazemore can continue playing like he has so far in the playoffs. My prediction is that the Cleveland Cavaliers win in 6 games. The next series in the Eastern Conference is the Miami Heat versus the Toronto Raptors. This isn't as intriguing a matchup as the other matchups going on in the playoffs right now, but it is still worth watching because there are a couple star players playing in the series. Toronto has never been past the second round. Well, this was the first year they've been past the first round of the playoffs in 15 years. That's amazing. While the Heat have won 3 titles in 4 seasons, Miami definitely has an advantage in that aspect. So they have experience and they know what it takes to win. So Miami has a bit of an edge in that department. The key matchups in this series: Hassan Whiteside versus Jonas Valanciunas, the matchup of the centers. They're going to have to rely on the centers heavily for both teams because both need the individual teams need these centers to show up. They both need them to double, and they need them to block shots and be good rim protectors. And the matchup of the point guards, Kyle Lowry versus Goran Dragic. That should be an intriguing matchup as well. The key players or go-to players for Miami is Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade has turned back into vintage Flash and has been absolutely stellar in the playoffs for Miami. For Toronto, it's DeMar DeRozan. DeMar DeRozan needs to be the player he was in the regular season, averaging over 22 points a game. He is a superb talent, but for whatever reason, he kind of struggles in the postseason. He needs to find his game in the postseason. The X factor in the series for Miami is Luol Deng, who is tied with Dwayne Wade for most points with 19. The X factor in the series for Toronto is DeMarre Carey. DeMarre Carroll is a player that can stretch the floor and hit some threes. He is also a player that is very versatile, and he can play at the power forward position if necessary. My prediction is the Miami Heat win in 6 games. But the scenario is if Miami will win if Dwayne Wade plays like he has so far in the playoffs, and they get contribution from key players on the team like Whiteside, Dragic, and Luol Deng. Toronto wins if Lowry and DeRozan play like they did in the regular season, and Valanciunas outplays Whiteside. Now I will move on to the Western Conference and preview those matchups. The first matchup in the Western Conference is between the Golden State Warriors and the Portland Trailblazers. A big question mark going into the series is the availability of Steph Curry, their best player and MVP this season. If Curry is unable to play, that should not stop the Warriors from winning the series, because they are still a very good team, even without Curry. Portland is a major underdog in this series, but they still have Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. And those two alone can still steal a few games. The key matchups in the series are Klay Thompson versus CJ McCollum, the battle of the shooting guards. Mason Plumlee versus Draymond Green, the battle of the bigs. These two matchups are very important because McCollum and Thompson are both star players, and Plumlee and Green are very versatile big men that can do it all. The key player for Golden State in the series, especially without Curry, is Shaun Livingston. Shaun Livingston is highly underrated. He's a player you can plug into the lineup and just do it all. He can get rebounds because he's tall and lanky. He can dish out some assists, and he can contribute some points, like 12 to 16 points. That's a very solid stat line. He can have like a 12, 6, and 6 stat line. That's a very solid. The key player for Portland, regardless of whether or not Steph Curry plays, is Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard is the heartbeat of Portland, and he is their go-to guy. Oh, by the way, if Steph Curry plays for Golden State, then he's obviously going to be their go-to player. I just said Shaun Livingston would be the key player for them if Steph Curry doesn't play, because you need a point guard. Without a point guard, your team doesn't run the same way. X factors in this series for Golden State: Andre Iguodala. Andre Iguodala is a very versatile player. At this point of his career, he's probably primarily a lockdown defender, but occasionally he'll chip in here and there. For Portland, it's Afro Camino. He is a player that's kind of versatile. He can play power forward or small forward, and he's a player that can get rebounds and get some points here and there. If Portland wants to win this series, Lillard and McCollum both need to score 20-plus points a night, and they need to get scoring off the bench and get contribution from role players like Plumlee, Harkless, Crabbe, etc. Golden State wins if they continue to play like a team and Klay Thompson plays like he did in the first round. The prediction is that Golden State wins the series in at most 6 games. The last series of the playoffs in the Western Conference is the San Antonio Spurs versus the Oklahoma City Thunder. This is the most anticipated and most hyped second round matchup of all of these second round matchups in the playoffs. You have the Spurs, who have been the second best team in the NBA this season and are a modern day dynasty. Then you have the Thunder, who are led by Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook, 2 of the top 5 players in the NBA right now. For that reason, this matchup is one to tune in and watch. The key matchups in this series are Tim Duncan versus Enes Kanter, the battle of the centers, LaMarcus Aldridge versus Serge Ibaka, and Russell Westbrook versus Tony Parker. Russell Westbrook versus Tony Parker. Obviously, Westbrook is better than Parker at this point of his career. He's way better. But Parker has the help of a swarming defense at the rim, which is why Westbrook cannot dominate against the Spurs like he normally does. He needs to get teammates open shots like he has been doing, and he cannot attack the rim like he does with his success against the Spurs defense, because they rotate and help on defense better than any team in the NBA. LaMarcus Aldridge versus Serge Ibaka is the matchup that is the most important in this matchup to me, because LaMarcus Aldridge is a mismatch. Not that Serge Ibaka is not good, but LaMarcus Aldridge is a different story. The guy is almost automatic from mid-range. So you have to look for the Spurs to take advantage of a mismatch there. And if he gets going, you have to double him. And once you double him, that opens up for 3 points, and then before you know it, you're getting blown out. Duncan, at 40 years of age, is still a very effective rim protector. And Enes Kanter is a really solid center in the league. But Tim Duncan has still managed to be effective despite his age. The key go-to player for each of these teams for San Antonio is Kawhi Leonard. He has evolved into a superstar in the league on both ends of the floor. He gets developed his offensive game to a point where he can control the pace of the game. He can dish out assists. He can grab the rebound and go coast to coast and either dunk the ball or pass to an open teammate spotting up for a 3. And then for OKC, the go-to player is Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant obviously is big time. He's went on his game is impossible to defend. He is, in my mind, he's probably the second best player in the NBA. The X factor in this series for San Antonio is the bench players. There is no one particular X factor. It's the bench players because they are a system team. Players like Patty Mills, Manu Ginobili, Boban, David West, and Boris Diaw. These players will play key roles in this series. For OKC, the X factor is going to be Steven Adams. San Antonio wins if they continue to play like they have all season long and play smothering defense. Kawhi Leonard plays like an MVP. OKC Thunder win if Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook take over and dominate play. That's the only way the Thunder win. The prediction is that San Antonio Spurs win in 6 games. Next episode. Okay, so let me wrap this up first. This shall do it for the second round preview of the NBA playoffs. Next episode, I will be updating you on the scoring leaders in the NBA playoffs.